Jenni Chase is a wife, mom, and lover of Jesus. She and her family chased their dreams and moved to Florida, where they have been able to flex their creative muscles and try new things. Jenni is a musician, photographer, artist, and designer. So welcome, Jenni.
Hi.
We've just introduced you, but maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself, like where you're from originally, your favorite thing about Florida, which I think I know,
Yes.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm from Illinois. I was born there, and the only time I ever lived anywhere else from my childhood was when I went to college. So I basically was in Illinois most of my life and went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota, and then came back and worked there for 10 years or so after college. And so and now we live in Florida. We've been here for 5 years. And the thing I love most is the beach and the warm weather. And yeah, I wouldn't change it. I've paid my dues with the Midwest, and I'm thoroughly glad I live in Florida. But
Well, I was going to say the shelling was your favorite.
yes, shelling too. I guess there are several favorites. So beach includes the shelling.
Yes. Now, did you go to Northwestern in St. Paul?
I went to Bethel.
You went to Bethel, other side of the lake. Got it. Okay.
Other side of the lake.
I was baptized in that lake. So,
fun. I forget that you have roots up there, that you have connections up there.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. So,
cool.
Well, today we're going to talk about something that I've observed that you're very good at, which I think is cultivating creativity. And you and I met several years ago. I don't even know if you remember this, but you were the photographer for a wedding, and I was the wedding coordinator. And your second shooter had a camera bag that I fell in love with.
I don't remember that at all. That's funny. Do you remember what the wedding, or who it was for?
Yeah, I think it was the Papritz
wedding.
Yes,
okay. I was going to say, I think it was a Papritz, because I've only done like 3 weddings. I'm not a wedding photographer.
Okay.
I mean, I'll do it when I can, and the people I love, but that's funny that of all the places we ran across each other, that was it.
That's where we met. So yeah. And then I just continued to bump into you, which, was often around upward sports photos. And then you had your studio share. And one of the things that really has always impressed me was how you pursued business in a way that was simple, elegant, and it served your family. And so, I'd love to know how you went about setting up your businesses that way. Was it accidental? Was it intentional? Did you change things? Tell me about how you set things up.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting to hear you describe it with those words, because I was like, I guess I really haven't seen the thread of that through all of these things. So, I think it's just part of my own desire to see it come to fruition in a style that I wanted it to. So I don't think it was an intentionally set out that with those specific words of, how they were going to play out, but just came from my personhood, I guess.
Okay.
But
they were that way. So, so what did you do when you set up your businesses to keep them simple and to keep them working around your family's needs?
Yeah. Describe to me more what you mean by simple. Is it just it looks like easy from your perspective, or that describe to that?
Yeah. So what I observed was it was very clear. This is what I offer. You didn't offer 47 things. You offered this. It was very clear how you got it, how you went about doing it. And you had good boundaries. It wasn't walk into a giant menu board and if somebody, my observation was, if somebody came to you and said, I'd kind of like to do it this way, if it was within your parameter, you might do it. Otherwise you might say, yeah, I don't do that. So, but this person does. That's kind of what I was observing.
Well, I think some of it comes from just sheer experience. Like 2006 is when I picked up a camera for the first time. And so I had a photography business, if we're talking about the studio share or other things like that, for a lot of years. And so just interacting with all kinds of clients and learning what I love to do and what I didn't love to do, that's where it started. But I also did pay for and seek out business coaching, which was super helpful in just really defining exactly what I was doing and what I wanted to accomplish. And it was worth the investment of time and money to get a clear purpose and stick with it. So that has really helped too.
Okay, so it's really all about the clarity. The simplicity comes because of the clarity of
Yes.
what you want to do, not only you in your business, but
Yeah.
what you want to do within your business and what you're gonna
Yeah.
outsource.
Yes, and definitely, yeah, it was a personal growth thing, and it was also a, understanding my clientele thing, so
Mhm.
knowing exactly who my, target market was and exactly the things that I love to do, that I stuck doing those, and the things that I didn't love to do, that I hired that out. So, it just it was clarity to understand exactly what my role was and who I was serving and how to serve them best, so
Yeah. I think I mean, that's a really important place to start because I think a lot of times we see, I want a business and we don't think that
yeah,
through.
yes.
When you hired your coaches, was that something that, were you already profitable and you said, now it's time for me to take it to the
Mm.
next level? Or did you kind of strategically say, before I invest time and money into this, I want to make sure I'm going the right direction?
Yeah, it was kind of, it was a dream that I had and that my husband supported, and referring to the studio share, well, actually, probably to both of these, the photographer in me and the studio share where I rented space to other photographers.
Mhm.
Um, it started with risk involved and, not knowing exactly where we were headed, and then it took some refinement, and some risk to hire the coach because it was not a cheap investment. So I looked at it more as a foundational thing, and that
Mhm.
I was gonna have to pay for it in order to get where I wanted to go next. So I don't,
Yeah.
and it depends on how you define profitable too, because yeah, that's a whole nother issue. But
Right, right, yeah.
um,
Are we talking it pays for itself or I'm
yes,
making money? Yeah.
yes, and I learned a lot in that process, and I know there's a question you'll ask me later that will shed some
Yeah.
more light on that. But
Yeah. So, well, and the other thing that I've really observed about you, this really makes me sound like a stalker, like, I want to know.
that's fine. This is good feedback for me. Like, huh, I wonder if that was really true. But
Oh, but I've seen you try different things, new things from that studio share, which I thought was a brilliant business model, to creating seashell chess sets, you know? How do you decide what you're gonna try for fun and learn? Because 'Cause I've also seen you do this with what do you call it? The pouring,
oh
the paint
yeah, acrylic pour.
pouring, the
Mhm.
acrylic
Yeah.
pour, and then what to turn into a business.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, I've learned over the years that I am just a creative person by nature, and it's gonna take on different forms. And I went to school for music, and I love music, and that was a part of my first adult job. And I've done that, but then it kind of shifted into more of a visual art and photography, and then in using acrylic paints. And so I don't think that at the base of my what I love has changed. I don't think that's changed. I think it's just taking on different forms
Mhm.
depending on what season of life I'm in and what I'm doing. And as far as it becoming a business, I think because my husband Matt and I are both creative people, and because we don't fit the mold of a standard 9 to 5 jobber, um, it just it was a natural flow from doing the things that we love to making an income out of that, because we didn't want to be doing things that we didn't love, and we might as well make an income with it. So
Yes, yes. Well, and you strike me as a bit of a minimalist, and so if you're going to be making things, it makes sense that you would then sell them
yes,
because you're not gonna collect them is
no,
my
but if you can tell me how to be a minimalist and an artist at the same time, I want to know, because I don't feel like that's possible. I
I
try
think that's
to
why
keep
you have
it.
a studio for the art stuff because
Oh yes, right. Hopefully we'll get another one of those soon. So
yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. So you just sort of say, "I'm enjoying this. I'm learning this skill. Maybe I can make some money from it," or
yeah,
in it's that kind of the path it
It
takes?
it is, and that's kind of a dangerous path though, because then you run into this constant dilemma of doing things you enjoy and then doing things you have to work at, and then moving into, I have to do this because I have to earn an income. So
Yeah.
it's this constant cycle of, do I love this and do I need to make it a business? Does it have to be something that I can only do and find purpose in if it's making an income?
Yeah.
Um, it's not something that I ever fully land on the right answer. It's kind of an ebb and flow in that.
Right, right. Well, and I think that's true with just about anything. There are days you love it, and there are
Yeah,
days that you're like, "Eh,"
yeah.
being a mom, I'm like that some days. I mean, so nothing is 100% joyful.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's yeah, deciding is it still life-giving or is it
Mhm.
now draining?
Yeah, I like the life-giving part of that because
Yeah,
I wanna I if it's both and, it's perfect,
yeah.
if you get to make an income with it and you get to love it, then it's a win-win, but
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Well, you've often, it seems like, have included your kids. Your husband has a very unique business, and the whole family goes along for that.
Yep.
So I don't know if you
Mhm.
want to tell us about that,
Yeah.
but have they kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug from you guys?
I think so. It's kind of a dangerous thing too that because Matt and I are both this way that our kids are just doomed for this the rest of their life. But um, yeah, Matt's job is called the Hovercraft Project, and we go around the U.S. in an RV, traveling to schools where we serve mostly fifth and sixth grade students, and they build and test and ride hovercrafts that are powered by leaf blowers that are battery operated.
Mm,
So it's a STEM project and we love it. And we're gone. Well, post COVID, it remains to be seen, but pre COVID, it was that we were out about 3 months in the fall and 2 or 3 months in the spring, traveling all over.
that's
But
great.
it is great, and it's so unconventional, and I'm sure people look at us like, "What are you doing?" And our kids, I think are gonna be in counseling when they grow up, but aren't everybody's kids gonna be in counseling?
For something.
Right? So we're gonna damage them regardless, but, the skill sets that they will learn watching us be entrepreneurs, are gonna be different than somebody else's skill sets, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good thing.
Yes, I was gonna say your kids will be in counseling because you didn't give them a brick or mortar home, and my kids will be in counseling because I didn't take them anywhere. So, it's no win.
No, I know either way you lose out. But, it is fun to watch them as they become their own persons, to, be thinking about finances and dreaming about things they can create and, Olivia's constantly designing things and building
Yeah,
things and Haley's constantly making lists of all the things she's gonna accomplish, so
that's great. So, how do you, with all of this creativity and entrepreneurial stuff going on and doing it as a couple and as a family, how do you keep things separate? How do you keep space for you as a couple and not you as business people? So it doesn't just sort of pervade in every aspect, every minute of the day. How do
yeah.
you how do you balance that?
Right. That's a good question too. I think we succeed at it sometimes and we fail at it a lot of the times. But in some respects, we enjoy working together. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure there's couples out there that can't function the way we do, but we enjoy designing things and building things and dreaming, and so it's not that one of us is moving and the other one is staying put. It's this constant uh recycling or generating new ideas and
Uh,
places to go and things to do. So I don't a lot of times I don't feel that we haven't made time for each other. Something simple we do, which I don't even know how this really started, but is getting up before the girls do in the morning and having coffee together.
uh,
He wasn't a coffee drinker when we first got married, and then he somewhere along the way realized how important coffee was to me, and decided that getting up and having a dialogue about even just what the day looked like was a good thing. So we call it coffee time, and we do it just
mhm.
about every morning. And sometimes the girls are up, and we just say, "Go away, find something else to do." But many times it's before they get up. So I think that's
Oh,
helped.
yeah.
And it also helps to be plugged into a church and doing other kinds of things together, like doing ministry together and things that aren't related to business. So that helps too.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like your businesses and their needs are at odds? Like he's like, "We're gonna be
Hmm.
on the road these 3 months," and you're like, "Well, I promised to make these things for this store." Does that ever become a problem?
As far as what Matt's needs to do and what I need to do, or
Yeah.
between us and our kids, or maybe all
No,
of
it when your business ventures sort of butt up against each other and
Yes,
have conflicting needs.
they do. They conflict. Yeah. So I we it's constant communication.
Mm,
I remember when we were nearing the end of the studio share era, and Matt was just pretty vocal about knowing that my attention was really divided.
Mm.
So it was never a job that I could like shut the door and be done with. There was constant interruptions. So phone calls or emails, or somebody needed this, or there's glitter in the studio and who brought the glitter in, like all of these kinds of stupid little things, but yet things that were needing attention. And so I never was fully present with my family. And I began to see that too. I hated that was the way it was, but even if I tried to get someone else to, do that specific job, my attention was just really divided. So then that spiraled into hiring yet another coach to really analyze all my numbers to see if it was something we just needed to close the doors on, because if we weren't making a profit at that point, it wasn't worth my time investment for this season in our lives. So that took a lot of conversation between Matt and I to understand what was really the highest value and priority in our lives at that time. Trying to do our family under the model that one person was to make the income and the other person was supposed to stay home, and that was it, but they couldn't overlap. That's something that's one model. And then I'm more of a both and. So Matt is an either or guy and I'm a both and girl. So if there's any kind of problem that's in our family, he's looking for the black and white answer, and it's either this or it's this. And I'm like, but it could be both. So we move in and out of the one person makes the income, the other one stays with the family, and the high-fiving each other on a daily basis between one job and the other. So right now I think we're well in a mode of we're going to do both, and it's going to take, and because we only have one car, we choose to have one car, that one person has to be home while the other person goes out, and it requires us to like high five each other in the day. You can go do these couple hours, you can come back and do this, and it helps now that I'm doing more art stuff because I can do that from home. Yeah. And I don't have to be away from the house too. So it's, again, another balancing act, and everybody functions differently. So
yes. Well, that's helpful. And it sounds like he helps keep you in check for being able to be present, because it can be really easy to become all consumed with the project, the business.
Yes. And it helps that he's a great dad. Like, he loves to be with our kids, and we homeschool our kids too, which adds another element of complexity to it all, but he does most of that. So, and he just is a great cheerleader for me. So I know that he's cheering for me. And so then in the times where he's like, rope it in, Jen, rope it in, rein it in, that I just have to adjust my investment in all the other things out there. So
yeah. Well, being an entrepreneur does take risk. You've talked about that a little bit. Some of it you can calculate, and some of it just happens.
Yes.
How do you handle risk? How do you approach that?
Matt is a bigger risk taker than I am. And, but over the years, I've realized that I can do that as well. And so part of it is just doing it. Like, this is kind of a funny analogy, but as I started working with acrylic paints and that particular avenue of art, you just kind of have to dump the paint out and see what happens. It's not something that you can like say, this is going to go here and this is going to go here, and then this color is going to show up over here. You just have to like have a base knowledge of what's about to happen and then just dump it out. And I think that's the same true with any kind of risk in an entrepreneurial scenario. You can calculate all you want, but at one point you just have to jump and try it. And if it doesn't work, learning to know that that's not failure, that's just another data point, which sounds so unemotional, but it's really true that if you don't try it, you don't know what's going to happen. So if you do try it, then you can adjust yourself for whatever the next jump is and work from there. So
yeah. I like that. I like that imagery. So let's talk about, I've seen you start things and I've seen you shut them down. And you've alluded to that with your studio share. How do you know when it's time to stop, and how do you do it gracefully?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Consulting other people and leaning into the people that are closest to you. I could get emotional just thinking about this because that meant so much to me.
Yeah.
because you put so much effort and time into it. It's like, if you're in this far, can't quit now, you know?
Yeah.
But we just, with that particular thing, with this studio share that we had, the time investment versus what I got paid was literally nothing. Like everybody else that I hired got paid,
Yeah.
but I never recovered or never got beyond the fixed costs. The fixed costs were just too high to do what we needed to do. And the photographers were not charging enough to pay more to rent the space to make that come above those numbers. And so that's the kind of time where I need to just step back from my relationship mindset for the people that we were working with and look truly at the numbers. And so I paid someone a really good amount of money to spend like 6 weeks where all we did was just pound and pound and pound the numbers and look under every rock and every crevice to try and figure out, you know, what we were missing and what to do next. And we both knew, I hired him to tell me at the end of it whether he thought this thing could be successful or whether I needed to shut the doors. And we came to the conclusion that we needed to shut the doors. And that was not what I wanted to hear. And that was a really emotional movement, you know, to go that direction. But going back to your question, learning to just understand at the time what my most important thing is and being not afraid to go on to something new. Like just because it worked and it had purpose doesn't mean that it has to continue for 20 years, you know?
Yes.
I just needed to know that I know without a doubt that the 5 years or however long we had it was worth every emotional investment and financial investment for it. And the people that we met and the lives that were changed because of that, I was so worth it. But it was done. Like we needed to move on to something new, and my family needed my attention. And I was trying to run it from Florida because we just moved, and I ran it 2 years from down here. And anyways,
Yeah, it gets
I don't
hard.
know if that answers your question.
Well, it does. And I think the fact that you sought out somebody who was objective and who
Yes.
could say, we're going to look at this and the goal was not to tell me to shut it down. It was to tell me, can this work or should I? I mean, so I think the fact that you found someone who could be objective and went through it with you, I'm wondering, was that process 6 weeks is a long time. And so even though that's not the outcome you wanted, it seems like that would really have primed you to go, yes, I'm on the same page and I'm coming to the same conclusion. Was that
Yeah.
process key in you coming to that decision?
I think so. I mean, it was definitely valuable. Whether I already knew before we started that I should shut it down, and he was just confirming that, or you know what? Now that I think about it, it really was an eye-opening thing for me to just have clarity in it. You know, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but because I really wanted to make it work, and I loved what I was doing, and I loved the people, and I didn't want to let anybody down in it. But I also knew that it needed to be profitable, or it was not worth continuing.
Right.
And so I think as we started unpacking things and having those set of eyes that were, you know, objective was a critical thing. So
Yeah. Well, and that's a good reminder to ask people and get input, and
yes,
not just opinion, but I mean, that's the other thing I think is valuable. It wasn't his opinion.
yeah,
It was data driven,
yeah, absolutely,
and it was clear when you
yes,
said that clarity. So
yes, and
I'm
it helps.
sure.
Oh,
Oh, go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just thinking it also helps to have people that aren't necessarily just on your team. Like they, you know, you can have your mom answer this question, but you can have a guy who's done this for 10 years, you know, and knows exactly how all businesses work. Like both of those opinions matter, but at the end of the day, the expert that can give you the clarity is the voice you have to listen to. You know, you
Yes.
can't just keep all your cheerleaders around you to get the right answers. But
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes it's that cheerleader that gives you that push to take that risk in the
oh,
first place.
absolutely,
So they
they're
are
both
important.
necessary.
Yes. Well, I'm sure there is a mom listening who's like, well, I have this hobby or I have this thing. Maybe I could make it a small business. What is something that she should think about? Like, what's the first thing should think about if she wants to move this hobby into making it a business?
Yes. I kind of chuckle at that question because it brings up a whole list of things that that need to be looked at. When you move something from something you love to do to a business, I think a lot of times people don't realize how much extra work it is and how
Mhm.
many things you have to do that you really don't like to do. So, moving something from a hobby to a business requires you to set up things like a business ID number and paying your sales tax. And it just, if you want to turn it into a sole proprietor, or you do it out of your personal finances, or you need liability insurance, and all of these things start eking their way into the time you have. So I think looking at how much time you actually have to give to it um, is a huge indicator of whether you should just keep it as a hobby or move it forward.
Mhm.
I always found it fun for photographers who were at this point in their hobby. If they were in a situation where there was another breadwinner in their household, where most of their finances were dependent on that, and they had the freedom to try it and to just put some of those things in place and be able to do some exploring. But when you're the sole breadwinner in your household and you're trying to make this decision, that's a whole nother level of like
Yes.
having to really look at time and numbers before you jump into it. But
Mhm. Well,
yeah,
and hobby is one thing, like you were saying, you enjoy what you're doing,
yeah,
but you add in marketing and if you turn it into a business, sometimes you find that you're not spending nearly as much time doing what you
yes,
enjoyed
yes.
as when it was just a hobby and a few people would buy it from you.
Yes, and I even when I was back with the business coaches that I was working with, learning to know whether I truly fit in the role of a business owner that had people underneath me, or I fit in the role of a creative.
Yeah.
And I think I can do both. I think I landed at that I could do both, but I really flourished in the creativity part. I didn't like thrive on the business ownership part. I can
Mhm.
do both, but so really just understanding can the person that wants to take this from hobby to business,
Yeah.
thrive in that part because it's a lot of work. But
Yes, that's a great point. Well, let's talk pricing for a minute because you are very well connected, and I know a lot of your friends are clients, and your clients have become friends.
yes, yes. So
So I know it can for me, and for a lot of people, I know it can feel really funny taking money from friends. But you are very good at saying having these clear boundaries and saying, "Well, here's my pricing. This is what you get. And here's all the stuff I'm doing that you don't see, and that's built into this price."
yes.
So, how do you figure out a price that is not going to take advantage of you? That you're going to get what something is worth?
Yes. Uh, it takes a lot of practice. Um, and it also requires me to not be worried about relationship, and to understand the value of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I would rather have 3 shoots a month. Not I don't even have that right now sometimes, but 3 shoots a month that were what I wanted to pay for it. So in
Mhm.
Illinois, Florida's a little different. I'm still learning about it, but in Illinois, I can probably get an average shoot of about $1,000
Mhm.
for a portrait shoot. And there are people that charge $200 or $50, and there are people that charge $5,000 for their work. And
Mhm.
I knew that I was worth that much money, and but being able to separate that from my personhood helped that ability to just stay with it. I don't want to work $200 shoots for 6 months straight and pull my hair out. I want to work for the 3 clients that will pay $1,000 that I can do, 3 times a month,
Mhm.
and not work that hard. But that took a lot of practice and a lot of maturity to know that that was okay, that I didn't have to take everything that came my way and I could charge what it was worth, and stick to it. And when it comes to relationship with friends, I just had to know that some of these people were not going to hire me and I didn't care. I
Yeah.
remember when I first made my first biggest price increase from just beginning to explore my business to really wanting to take it seriously. And I just wrote them all a letter. I'm sure it was way more wordy than any, a male would not have done this, but the female relationship person in me said, I need to write everybody that I know and tell them that I still love them, even if they can't afford me anymore. So that's what I did. I just sent out a letter and I said, I love you and I want a relationship with you, but I completely understand if you can't afford me anymore, and I'm okay with that. So don't be afraid to let that look different. So
yeah.
anyways.
Well, I think that's good. Those are good words of keeping your profession separate from your person.
Yes. Right.
So that's excellent. So are there things like, do you have a list of things you want to learn and try? Like you're like, I'd love to learn and figure out, I don't know how to knit or whatever it is. Or do you just sort of go, oh, I saw this the other day. It looked interesting. Let me YouTube it and start figuring it out.
Right. It's probably a little bit of both. I think with the acrylic pouring and that part of things, I researched for like 6 months. I didn't do anything. I just watched YouTube videos because I just love the idea of combining colors and just the spontaneity of this type of art.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just did research for 6 months and then I pulled the trigger on getting the paints and everything. But anything that's artistic catches my eye at some point or another. So just being able to know what resources I have and what kind of funding I have to try it, plays a role in whether I can jump into it or not. But
yeah. Well, and I want to revisit the pricing for a moment
Oh, sure.
because I just want to tell people that you're also one of the most generous people I know. I remember early in COVID, you made these pictures with verses of encouragement on them. And you said, I've printed, I don't know, 20 sets of these. Let me know if you want them. And then you mailed them out. And I think you started getting a demand. So then you started selling them. But I have those. I have a frame and I switch them out. They're in my
Oh,
kitchen
that's fun.
and it was just thoughtful. And even the basketball pictures you would do, you
Yeah.
did that in this grand scale and you made it very, very affordable for everybody there to have pictures of their kids doing the sport. So I wanted to say that lest it sounded like you
Yeah.
are
Well,
I'm
I
going
think
to charge big bucks and I don't care about you. That I don't
no,
want
not at
that to
all.
come across at all.
Yeah,
'Cause
well,
you're
I think too, and once any entrepreneur or any business owner knows that they can charge what they're worth, then they have the freedom to do things like that. So
yeah.
I don't have to, feel guilty or like be bothered by the things that I want to give away because I can do that.
Yes.
And because, God just asks us to be generous people and he'll figure it out. Like if he's called
Yeah.
us to do something, then we just provide he'll provide the resources that are needed. But it's a healthy balance between knowing the value of the thing you're doing and also having the freedom to give it away when you need to. So
Yes. I love that. That right there I think is the takeaway from this whole thing is recognizing the value of what you're doing and having the freedom to give it away if you want to. And so I think that's really good. Well, I have enjoyed our conversation and we're coming to an end. But one thing that I ask every guest, because I'm a gadget girl, I love the right tool that's going to make things easier. And so I want to ask you, what is your favorite time-saving gadget, system, or tool?
Yes, I really had to think about this because we are kind of in a minimalist phase of life, and we don't have a lot of gadgets of anything right now. And but I had, as I was looking around the room, trying to think, what is it that saves me time? I really like my electric teapot. So
Ah,
and I don't even use it for tea all that much. I use it for everything. And when I have a guest over, it just heats the water up really fast, so I don't have to put a teapot on the stove. I can just plug it in, and it
that
helps on
is
the RV
great.
too because it's a lot faster than any other way. So there you
Yes,
go.
yes. I love that. Have you ever tried hard boiling eggs in there?
No, but I have an I have an Instapot too. So
Okay. Yes.
Instapot is where I hard boil eggs. I used to be the worst hard boiled egg person out there until I found the Instapot, and now
Yes.
it's been seamless ever since. So
That one's wonderful, and that's where I do them in bulk, but if I just want 1 or 2, I'll do them in the electric kettle,
ooh,
and,
I like that. I'm gonna have to
they
try
work
that.
out really well, so
Mm.
so
All
the
right.
trick is after it stops boiling, let it sit for another 10 minutes or so, then
Okay.
take them out, but
All right. See, I
anyways
just would forget them in there, and they would all explode everywhere, and then I would have these eggs that look
oh, they
nothing.
wouldn't explode,
Oh, they would.
they would just keep cooking.
All
I mean,
right.
like, 'cause the
They'd be
'cause then
hard
it'll
boiled.
turn off, you know? But,
Yes.
oh, well, we could keep talking about this. Um, so Jenny, how can people connect with you?
Um, business-wise or personal, Facebook is a big place where a platform I'm on, and Instagram. I have an art page on Facebook. Actually, on both Instagram and Facebook, I have an art page and then a
Okay.
separate photography page. So, depending on what your needs are,
Okay.
those
Well, I'll
that's where
put
you can find
links to
me.
all of
Okay.
that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, and you're in Florida, and so if people are in Florida, they can hire you to do photo shoots, and you do a lot
Yeah.
at sunset, correct?
I do. I just love the sunset. So yes, I do beach photography a lot. I've done a lot of product work recently. I'm not a wedding photographer. I would do it if I had to, if I didn't have to do the reception. But I love to do high school seniors and large families. Like if someone's coming down on vacation and they need, pictures for everybody, that's fun. That's a lot of fun for me. So
Excellent. Well,
yeah.
we'll put links to all of that below, and hopefully people will look you up when they come through
Yeah, I do have one
Florida.
more place too. I realized I
Yeah,
forgot this, but my art is sold at 2 different stores down here too, so I can give you the link to those places. But
excellent.
yeah,
Great. Oh, good. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all this and the encouragement that you've
yeah.
given to take risk and try things.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.